Will AI take over the church? Will robots preach? Should the church even use AI? Over the course of this video, we're going to look at the major questions around AI and the church. I'm Jordan. Welcome to Theology Made.
The following video has been approved for appropriate audiences. Theological reflection advised.
And let me put my cards on the table. I do think AI is one of the most beneficial tools the church has. Now, there has always been disruptive technologies, and the majority of disruptive technologies have proven to be a pretty good benefit to the church. We could think back to the time of Jesus, we had the Roman roads. Now, the reason why that is so significant is as Rome was paving the roads, as Rome was creating these roads as if they had a construction team. But as they were making these roads, it allowed their troops, it allowed them to command a wider area. But what it also allowed is for the gospel to advance. Fast forward many centuries and we have the Gutenberg press. And with the Gutenberg press, what happens is that we're now able to, rather than painstakingly copy and write out the Bible and incredible biblical literature, we're now able to print it. And it's able to be distributed everywhere. And then we really fast forward when we have radio. And through the radio ministry of the 19th, 20th century, millions of people got saved. And you can probably see where this is going. Then to television, and then to internet. AI is just the next iteration. Now here's the deal. Roman roads, the press, radio, television, internet, yeah, all of those things were used in very negative ways. But they also can be used in very positive ways. And AI is the same thing. And so, like the technologies that come before, again, they can be used beneficially and they can be used destructively. So let's look at the benefits of why churches should look at how to leverage the first. And I'm just gonna get this one out of the way at the very beginning, because I know there may be a temptation just to turn it off right here, but please just hear me out. And it's sermon preparation assistance. Now, I am not advocating in any way that you should put in your idea into ChatGPT and ask it to write a sermon. In fact, a pastor did that in Texas when ChatGPT first came out, and it ended up going horribly. It was all in the news. So don't do that if you're a pastor. But AI can improve sermon preparation, because here's what AI allows you to do. It can help you analyze the historical context. It can assist you with finding theological literature. It can help, as you type in keywords, it's going to bring up a whole lot of things. It's no different than if you're a pastor and you use Logos or whatever other Bible software or books that you would comb through. But what AI, items like ChatGPT can do, is they can very quickly provide resources and tools that not only will expedite your sermon preparation process, but will actually allow you to write and preach more effective sermons. And it gives you tools, especially in a small church, that you might not be able to afford. And then here's a really big one that I think AI can be of a great benefit, is in language translation and interpretation. And we're seeing this a lot, that AI can facilitate kind of a multilingual communication with, essentially in this case, a diverse congregation. Now the church I was a part of years ago, we had a Spanish translation, and it was awesome, but it required someone who could translate in Spanish, being there. It was a whole ordeal, and it was a lot of work. But with AI, we can move in effective ways that we actually could have multilingual services. And then this next one, and I would say this might be the biggest one, is that AI in the church, it can provide administrative efficiency. And this might be, to me, the biggest one, that what AI tools can do is they can automate administrative tasks like scheduling, event planning, and managing church finances. And one of the misnomers about being a pastor is pastors don't just like sit around and write sermons. Now, I think that's kind of why we get into it, because we think that's what it's going to be. And then we find out pretty quickly there is a lot of planning. There is a lot of administration that you do working in a church. What AI can do is allow pastors and staff, they can actually start moving towards focusing more on ministry and ultimately a lot less on paperwork. If you're a pastor, put an amen in the chat. But the next thing that AI can do for us is that it can really help us in the data analysis when it comes to decision making. That AI analytics can process data, one, quickly, but they can look at church attendance, giving records, community demographics, And it can provide insights into trends and preferences. And here's why that matters. It helps pastors make informed decisions about sermon series and the programs they should focus on, where they should put their outreach focus, where resources should be allocated. It allows for a much better process when it comes to making decisions for the church. And then this next one, for some, I realize there's debates on, on whether this should be utilized at all, but it's still worth bringing up, and it's virtual reality for remote worship. That an AI-driven virtual reality, it can create immersive worship experiences for those who are remote or homebound congregants. Now, I will confess that when I was a pastor, full-time pastor, like I very much was, you need to be in church. I did kind of treat it like, if you're just watching online, you're getting the junior varsity version. And going through COVID and then realizing there were people who weren't ever going to be able to come back, it really changed my perspective. And I realized that you can encounter God anywhere. In a remote setting, you can encounter God even if you're a homebound congregant. But I think beyond even just the service and what we could create and what we could provide, there's also the potential for including virtual tours of historical religious sites, interactive Bible studies. There's a lot that could be done there. And then 6 is personalized outreach and engagement. That AI algorithms, what they can do is they can analyze member engagement patterns, preferences to personalize communications and outreach efforts. And so what this does, this ensures that members are going to receive what is relevant to them. Like if you attend a church, how often in a week do you get bombarded by everything going on through email and texting service, things that you really don't need to know? If you don't have kids, you don't want to know about all the kids stuff. Well, AI can help eliminate that. And then next is that it really can enhance an online presence and digital ministry. That AI-powered tools, they can optimize church websites for better user experience. They can improve search engine visibility. It can also personalize context or content based on a visitor's behavior. And what an incredible thing to be able to leverage what are your spiritual needs and how can we as a church reach those needs. And one of the most effective tools we can use in accomplishing that is actually AI. And then there's such an expediency when it comes to marketing and design. The ability to type into Adobe Firefly, I need a bulletin on ... and boom, it's beautiful, there it is, the amount of time saved doing that. And can we all just agree that we can maybe up the design a bit on the church bulletins. And then the last thing here is that it really helps with educational resources and discipleship tools. Because what AI can do, again, is it can curate and recommend the best resources, the best study materials, the best discipleship tools for your church. But then I think the more important part, and this is the cool part, is that it can actually be tailored to individual spiritual growth stages and interests and desires of growth. And what this does is it supports lifelong learning, but it also is a tool for deepening our faith. All right, so that's the advantages of using AI. But what about the setbacks, and what are maybe some of the destructive ways? And there are certainly drawbacks of using AI in churches, particularly when it comes to the pastoral setting. And so, we mentioned that it can be a tool for sermon preparation, but it's not to write your sermon. And there can be a temptation of starting to lean a bit more on technology and less on the Word of God, starting to lean more into automation and not to use a phrase by a very well-known pastor, Chuck Swindoll, to keep your butt in the seat till the sermon is done. But it can also lead to depersonalized pastoral care. When we over-rely on AI with pastoral care, that's going to lack warmth, empathy, human connection, all the elements that are essential if we want to do effective pastoral counseling and emotional support. And then also it can lead to, of course, privacy and data security risks, because you're handling sensitive personal information through AI systems. And so that does raise concerns about data security, confidentiality breaches, and potential misuse of a congregation's personal data. And there are dependency and reliability issues. When there's an over-reliance on AI tools, it can reduce a pastor's ability to critically think, problem solve, which is essential for effective pastoral ministry. In fact, when you get into ministry, you spend a lot of time problem solving. And then there can be a loss of traditional worship practices. When we overemphasize technological innovations like AI or anything else, it can diminish traditional worship practices and communal experiences. Because at the end of the day, this is a spiritual practice. Next is spiritual integrity and authenticity concerns. Because the introduction of AI into a spiritual context, it can raise concerns about the authenticity and the sincerity of worship experiences, which could very much affect a congregation's spiritual growth and connection to God. Now, these drawbacks are real, and there's probably a bunch more, and they're important, and they require careful consideration and ethical reflection. But there can be a balanced implementation when it comes to integrating AI and the church. The benefits in this case outweigh the drawbacks, especially for small churches. Because the accessibility of low-cost technologies, it can really enrich what a small church does. Because a smaller church operates with very limited resources. Sometimes the only paid person is the lead pastor. And so this can allow a church to better manage the responsibilities and shift their focus from the mundane administrative tasks, which there's a lot of them, to more meaningful aspects of ministry. And ultimately, this is a way I think that can address the epidemic of burnout among pastors. Because if used wisely, whether it's ChatGPT and there's tons of other AI tools, it can be as beneficial in our time as word processors, email, or even the overhead projector of previous decades. Because often the profound impact of these kind of technologies, they're overlooked until later. And we forget how significantly, even those ones, which seem archaic now, streamline the work of church staff. So come with me, back to the 80s, where a pastor would dictate a letter typed on a manual typewriter by a secretary. And you fast forward to the 90s and it was done on a word processor or email. But that same communication that was typed arduously, then in the 90s maybe took 20 minutes to write, ChatGPT can literally write that email like that. Because what ChatGPT and other AI platforms, what they do is they give us a valuable resource as churches. But again, it should complement rather than replace human roles. Because it is, at the end of the day, it is a tool. And it's used to man's careful oversight, ethical consideration, and accountability. But I think despite potential challenges, that we should embrace this technology gratefully, recognizing that it's actually a blessing because it empowers small churches to operate as if they had much larger staffs and much more effectively. So AI is not taking over churches. Rather, AI is just the next iteration of how we can move effectively into reaching the ends of the earth with the gospel of Jesus. So no, there's not going to be any robotic Billy Graham anytime soon. So prompt responsibly, friends.